Welcome back to another Tera Plays Tera video. Alright, so in today's video we are going to go over Tera Console's 111.01 build update. Now, these patch notes just came out a little before this video's release. There's a chance stuff might change by the time this video is officially released, and I do apologize that I am going to kind of push through this a bit quickly because as of recording, I have a trip that's coming out, and I'm gonna try and get this all recorded, released, as best edited, and do everything I can at the best quality. So yeah, hopefully, you know, again, there's a chance that by the time this video releases and patch notes might have had some things that the devs change, or just things that are just indifferences. So if that happens, I do apologize. I'll try to update everything in this video as best as I can, but I will be a bit away from my setup, so we'll do the best we can. I apologize. Within that, the major thing that I want to go over is obviously dungeons. As always, the biggest thing is we have an open and closed dungeon, that being LK, HM, and LK. Both are replacing Gossamer's Vault, Hard, and Normal, and they're just matching the item level and so on and so forth like usual. Within this, I don't know if also RM is getting officially replaced with Dark Reach, but I would hope, since that was meant to happen, maybe it's ready by now. We'll have to wait and see the actual update on the update day, which I'll go in, and of course that happens on the 9th, and I'll go over some of the in-game changes because we got some cool stuff coming. That being the items, there is being items added to the specialty store, being teleport scrolls to Akalas Quarantine, Gossamer's Vault, which a little late, but okay, I guess when it comes back out we can use the teleport scroll, and Catalepticon. So for players who don't have the vanguards that run these dungeons, you know, you can now buy the teleport scrolls to get yourself there. They're also adding new costumes that can be purchased with the Easter fashion coupons. Again, Easter's, you know, pretty far away, so I don't know if they're bringing these coupons back out. I know some people might still have them saved up. I know there's other ways to get these coupons, but you know, they're changing that store. Belt accessories, or belt and accessories, will be added to the returner users package. This is something that I think is much needed due to just the fact that recently anyone who is banned from the Battle Pass glitch about 6 months ago, they came back and all of their progress was wiped, which kind of harsh. At the same point, I don't blame that for being the for the thing, but the thing is that their characters weren't wiped. They still have their character names, which, you know, I think that's reasonable. I personally think they should have at least kept, you know, Fraxum gear or something, but everything was wiped, and the issue with this is that things like belts and brooches, it's kind of hard to get a new one of, especially a new belt. New belts are always an issue because people just, you know, you go to the Vanguard store and for whatever reason they're not there. If you don't have your Dougal resupply quest, you physically can't get another belt, which is just a issue in general. So having them added to a returners users package, really nice for people that return that now can have a belt. I think the devs should really consider adding even Stormcry belts into other shops. It's kind of weird why we don't have an item that we need purchased, even if it's at the lowest playable level of the game. But I digress. The next big thing is pets, and I'm really happy to see this pet change, and that is that the pet menu, you can see the probability of evolution and the passes when you train your pet. This is major because I don't think the probability goes up with every fail. but it would be nice just to see it, and it would be nice to know if it does. I'm gonna be real, I have failed so much on my superior pet that I don't think the probability does go up, but it's still nice to be able to at least have something to see. So, you know, and maybe within this change, this is also their way of saying that every fail you'll see the probability go up, and that's being added. Maybe not, maybe it's just we'll have a visual of seeing that we have X amount chance. Which again, I'm glad that they're adding, because I've been starting to think that maybe I have bugged pets because I've tried a lot of tries. So, but within that, that is a nice overall quality change. Pets will also have a visual effect depending on the passive phase your pet is at. Again, not exactly sure what this looks like, but when it puts it in the game, I'll pull out a green and blue pet, and if I have a superior pet by then, I'll have a green, blue, and superior that I can show the differences of. So that's the pet changes. Very nice little additions. Season 5 Dreadspire will be coming out, and Dreadspire will be reopened. It's not up here, so I don't know its item level, but within Dreadspire, they are only starting at the 7th floor. So it seems like we're going to be fighting floor 7, 8, and 9, and that's about it. Maybe they're adding more floors and extending it so that it's still several bosses and they're keeping it secretive. I don't really know. That would be really cool. I can also see that a lot of people might have not liked 10 floors worth of bosses, that it took too long. It's really hard to say what they're doing at this point with Dreadspire. I don't disagree with it being just 3 bosses. At the same point, it's kind of sad. I think more bosses is really fun, but I don't know. We'll have to see and see what they exactly do, because at the same point, if it's only going to be 3 bosses, but these 3 bosses drop really, really good loot that's worth it, this could be actually a really cool change. Again, we won't know until it's actually in the game, but I do hope Dreadspire is worth running, because usually the loot it drops is not worth, but maybe it being less bosses, they can make it more worth the time. So that's overall the basics of the patch. Now we're going to get into the meat, and that is the class balancing. And oh boy, is there a lot to go over this. A lot of really good stuff is coming up, and I'm excited to see that we are getting another huge class balance, and I hope we keep getting these large class balance patches until classes are more balanced. And I think we were close, and I think this brings us potentially even closer. So let's get into it. The first class is Warrior. Your Traverse Cuts, your Blade Draw, and your Blade Waltz are all getting increased skill damage by 30%. For Aerial Scythe, you're getting a 15% skill damage increase, and the cooldown is getting reduced from 24 down to 20 seconds. Hey, as a Warrior main, I'm kind of excited. I'll be honest, for cooldown warriors, your rotation probably is never going to use Scythe again with this. Maybe it still will, it's really hard to say, but this is kind of ridiculous. I don't agree with Aerial Scythe being so short. I don't know if it's going to really be affected by stigmas like it used to, because 4 seconds might be big, it might not. But, hey, I'll take it. I would have liked to see Traverse Cuts, give people damage or attack power or something in D-stance. I would have liked to see a little love toward tanks, something specific, but I'll take it. Screw it, why not? I'll be curious to see how the class plays with this. Slayers. Alright, Headlong Rush. They've removed the power link of Headlong Rush. You can't acquire this glyph after the update, the glyph item will be removed from the Slayer's glyph token and glyph points will be returned to you. Whirlwind, Knockdown Strike, Stunning Backhand, Eviscerate are all getting increased damage by 30%. Overhand Strike is also getting increased damage by 30%, and additionally a new glyph. You're getting Glyph of Carving, which is 3 points, and it will triple the crit chance. There's also a new glyph, or the new glyph can be acquired from the Slayer's glyph tokens. The amount of Slayer glyph tokens needed is 1. You can also acquire from the Vanguard Initiative Quartermaster, and the amount of Vanguard Initiative credits is 30. So, not bad. And then the Ultimate Overhand Strike, Measured Slice are also both getting increased damage by 30%. Savage Strike, Gather Power, they've increased the skill's casting speed from 12 to 20%. They've also increased the skill's damage from 20 to 30%. And they've increased the skill's damage by 30... I don't know what that means, but overall the skill, that one's getting increased damage of 30%. Swift Linkage, I apologize about my Discord. Swift Linkage to increase the stat count of abnormally from 6 to 8, and it increased skill damage from 20 to 30%. Punishing Blows and Unsheath are also getting 30% increased skill damage. So overall, Slayers, you're getting even more damage. I hope this brings you up to being, equal to most of all our DPSs. I know you guys have gotten a lot of buffs lately, and I know a lot of Slayers still feel like it hasn't been enough. So hopefully it is now enough, but we'll see. Zerks, my Zerk friends, you're finally getting some love. It's been a while. Basically, your whole kit, from what I understand, the most used skills: Flatten, Thunderstrike, Cyclone, Vampiric Blows, Evasive Smash, Lethal Strike, are all getting 30% increased damage. I think this is very much needed. I think Zerks do fantastic burst, but your sustain is a little lacking. Again, a lot of classes are also, as we've seen, already getting 30% damage, so maybe this just equals you out with everyone else. At the same point, we're not done though with Zerks. No. Your Unleashed Sinister, Dexter, Rampage are all getting increased skill damage by 30%, and Beast Fury is getting an additional 40%. So Zerg's burst is pretty nutty beforehand. I think this definitely just makes Zergs wild in Unleash. I think this gives them so much extra damage. I don't know if they needed this for Unleash, but at the same time, if they're going to be really low on sustain, and again, as I said, I do think they needed an increased damage to everything, but as we continue on with the notes, you'll see a lot of classes lately have already gotten increased damage by 30%, that it probably just balances you with everyone else. Maybe your sustain is still bottom, but I think with this burst increase, it may actually neutralize. Again, I'm not too sure, but we'll have to see. But I am glad to see that Zerks are not left out, and they're getting an overall pretty massive buff. By itself on paper, it's pretty massive. Gunners. They've increased the default attack speed stat from 90 to 100. The replenishment changes skill casting speed to be affected by attack speed. A lot of your skills are getting this, which is probably really good. Burst Fire, they're increasing the skill damage by 30%. They've changed the skill's casting speed to be affected by attack speed. So now, if anyone who doesn't understand, Gunners are kind of animation locked, in the sense that their skills worked off of just the game. It worked off whatever the skill was set at. If you build attack speed, you can make the attack faster now, is what this means. So potentially attack speed that you didn't have calculated before is actually now calculated, and the skill works off current attack speed, instead of just being a random animation of the game's choice. So this is pretty massive, and as we'll keep going, it gets more massive. Targeted burst fire has also been increased by 30%, as well as affected by attack speed instead of just casting speed. Mana missiles, they've increased the skill damage by 40%, as well to increase the casting speed of the skill. Bombardment, they've increased the skill damage by 30%, along with Arcane Barrage also getting an additional increase to 30%. Baldur's Vengeance is increased by 40% damage. For Back Blast, they've increased the effect duration from 5 to 10 seconds. For Detonate, Remote Trigger, and Obliteration, they're all getting increased skill damage by 30%. Now, Arcane Splash. Arcane Splash's skill range will be increased. There will be changed about generation and explosion though. For splash damage, the Arcane Barrage Remote Trigger 100% chance to create an Arcane Splash on successful hit. Scattershot has a 40% chance to create an Arcane Splash on successful hit, where Burst Fire and Bombardment have 30% chance to create Arcane Splash. And then Targeted Burst Fire has 35% chance to create an Arcane Splash. Blast and Detonate have 40% chance to create an Arcane Splash on successful hit. For Arcane Explosion, you'll need to use, or however it works, is Remote Trigger, Baldur's Vengeance, and Obliteration. So, Gunners, you have received a massive buff. Again, I really hope this really brings out some Gunners. I hope this is a lot of love to Gunner, and I'll be curious to see what Gunners can now do. I think this is much needed for Gunners. Brawlers, you guys just got a buff, and this patch's buff is kind of weird. Concentrate, they've increased the skill damage from 2 to 5%. If I believe Concentrate's a passive, this really isn't crazy, but it's okay. Never Retreat, they've increased your aggro from 10 to 25%. I don't think it's necessary, but I guess, sure. Growing Fury, they've decreased the attack speed. 10 has been removed. So, Brawlers, when they get into Growing Fury, had less attack speed by 10. This is being removed, so Brawlers will now be faster in Growing Fury. Kind of interesting. Pile Driver, they've changed the skill casting to be affected by attack speed along with Jackhammer. This is kind of massive for brawlers that do use these skills. Now I know some brawlers might not, I know some brawlers do, it depends on your play. But both these skills being affected by attack speed could make it so that you get through them quicker, which for Jackhammer is really nice with getting the debuff off on the boss. This also should mean that the attack speed buff from Dashing Strike should also now work on Jackhammer as it's listed in the footnote, and sometimes it felt like it did and sometimes it felt like it didn't. Now it 100% should work the way it's intended because these skills are attack speed based, which I think is much needed. Flying Kick, the increased effect duration from 8 to 10 seconds, and the attack speed is from 5 to 10 seconds, or from 5 to 10%. So basically, if you get a perfect block with Flying Kick, you get an additional 5% attack speed what you used to for an additional 2 extra seconds. Kind of a neat little buff, I think. Counter, this is the biggest one, and it's the Glyph of Power Link. It used to not be 100% chance, and now it is 100% chance, but they've actually decreased the damage from 25 to 20%. So you're guaranteed, as long as you proc your Glyph, you will always get an additional damage, but it's a little bit less than before. So, kind of neat. I think that Glyph should have always been 100% chance, and I don't think dropping it by 5% is really massive, but I think Brawler overall is in a really, really good spot right now, and I'm glad to see that there's one tank getting love. hopefully we start seeing some love to maybe War Tank and Lancers, but we'll have to wait and see. But I think Brawlers at this point definitely should be the highest performing tank. Within that, the last class buff we're going to go over is Valkyries, and you guys are getting something major. I apologize. The first thing on Valkyrie, and I don't disagree with it, but also I kind of disagree with it. And that is, when you die, you will no longer lose your rag points. Now, if you are in rag and you die, you will have to rebuild, from what I understand. But let's say you're halfway to rag and you die, you don't have to build that first half again. You only have to get up to, full bar. I think this is great in some ways, but I also think this now... One of the tricky things about Valkyrie was building rag, not dying, and popping it and getting your burst off. Now there's not that penalty. I don't know. I'm kind of torn about it because I feel like part of the class's charm and skill was building rag and not dying, and now that penalty doesn't exist, so it's kind of like, well, now I can just die whenever I want, and I don't really like that mentality, but it is what it is. I'm sure a lot of Valks are yelling at me right now, and hey, you know what? For a lot of players, I think this is a buff that a lot of people will enjoy. Baldur's Tears generates 67 rag points every second. Now it will generate 201 rag points every second. So you'll only need to wait 5 seconds to have a full rag bar with Baldur's Tears. Less than 5 seconds technically, but basically 5 seconds. Maelstrom, Shining Crescent twice, Gunger's Bite, Twilight, and God's Fall are all getting an increased skill damage by 30%. That is pretty massive because Valks just received a pretty big buff. So I'll be curious to see what Valks are doing now with an additional 30% on their hardest hitting skills. Now I want to go over Shining Crescent 2, and this is a part that I mentioned in the beginning that I'm kind of worried that they might change, and there might be an additional skill on Valk that's getting increased damage. I don't know if they meant to write something else, or if they just meant that it's the first and second hit of Shining Crescent. I don't know. My other guess would be maybe they mean Rune Burst and they forgot to put it there, and because that's the other one that's similar. You build, your runes for Crescent and Rune Burst. Maybe they just... I don't know. Again, maybe it's Shining Crescent's first hit, second hit, both getting 30%. I would think that would just fall under Shining Crescent. Who really knows what they mean? But it could also just be a typo, and that's something, if they change it as this comes out, I do apologize. But from what I'm reading and see, they have Shining Crescent on here twice. So I don't know if that means it's getting 60%. I don't think it's getting 60%. That would be crazy. But yeah, it's on here twice for whatever reason they have. That is all the class bugs. We'll now get into some of the bug fixes, and that's the last thing we'll go over. And that is, there was a problem of not updating when your pet is upgraded. That will be fixed. Problem of not being equipped the Gaster normal stigma, that has now been fixed. For those that are wondering, basically if you had a white or a green Gaster with a blue something else, it wouldn't let you apply the Gaster unless I think you took the Opus off, or just in general you weren't able to equip the white or green Gasters. That's now being resolved, so that's good. Problem of characters being pushed out when character uses specific skill from the side of the pets will now be fixed. Catalepticon Heart, the problem of not achieving the leaking blood will be fixed. For Catalepticon Heart, the problem of the boss's anger gauge is going to be fixed. The problem of characters' names being always appeared when you acquire an item is being fixed. And the Pulling the Fangs quest will hopefully, finally, be fixed. So, we'll see. This update is happening on the 9th. That is roughly a week from today. So I'm very excited. I'm very happy to see another class balance, and I hope we keep seeing class balance until classes are very close to equal. Again, every game has its meta, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't have a meta. It's fine to have a meta, but it's nice to also make sure that everything is really equal, that it should come down to player skill, not just I got carried by a class. So within that, I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, if you got any questions, feel free to ask me. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I do apologize if I do not get to them really fast. I got a very busy weekend, and we'll see how that goes. So I'm hoping I can even get this out. As always, if you like the video, go ahead and hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing if you want to see more content, more Tera content of all types. I have a lot of stuff that I have planned that I want to do and release, and a lot of cool information that I want to get out there very soon. But coming soon. So if you want to see that, please consider subscribing and hit that bell to get the notifications for all the future videos. Or hey, maybe you're someone that keeps coming around to the channel and you're not subscribed. I would greatly appreciate it. It helps me out a lot to keep making more and more content. Within that, I hope you all have a fantastic night and or day, and I hope to see you in Aboria, gamers.